Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie officially switch rides, and Bubba Wallace re-ups with 2311, so let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, it finally is made official. We talked about this a month ago, as you can see from this thumbnail right here. Justin Haley, I'm proud of that thumbnail, by the way. I like small, tiny dancing Joker there. It is finally official. They have finally decided to announce it. Justin Haley will be driving the number 7 car, so let's start right there first. With 3 truck wins, 4 Xfinity Series wins, and of course, the one Cup Series race where it was just a crazy situation where they had the rain and Kurt Busch inexplicably peels off pit lane before it goes back, and then it starts raining or thundering again. And anyway, they called the race. Well, that is the one Cup Series win, so it doesn't have an asterisk beside it because it's still a win, but it definitely, in a lot of people's minds, stands out. But that win was with Spire Motorsports in the 77, which he's going back to. This time, he will be driving the number 7. So taking it back to the guy that got them their first win, he is reunited with that team. And this is a much different Spire team now than when Justin Haley left it to go race at Colleague, and then later, of course, now racing at Rick Ware Racing, where he does have in his last few races 2 top 10s for Rick Ware Racing. So when's the last time you said that about Rick Ware Racing and you weren't talking about a restrictor plate track? Or I don't think anybody's ever gotten 2 top 10s in a season that weren't both, restrictor plate track top 10s or whatever. So definitely has done well with the equipment provided over there. Probably better than any other Rick Ware driver I can remember in recent memory or ever, to be totally honest. Not only that, but he's leaving that Rick Ware team, like I said, to join the Spire team that is on the uptrend. This is not, like I said, the Spire team of old. They have signed other drivers. They have got major sponsors. You're going to have Michael McDowell coming in there to be a veteran presence. Now you've got Justin Haley, who it doesn't seem like it, but he's been in the Cup Series for several years now in there as well. Then you've got the young up-and-comer in Carson Hocevar. You've got the sponsor money rolling in, and the cars are much better quality equipment-wise than they were at least 2 years ago even. So that is a team on the rise, so it's going to be really interesting. And Justin Haley, an up-and-coming driver on the rise as well, pairing him with those other 2 drivers, I think is going to bring huge dividends, which we'll see after the Bristol race. He will still be in this car for Bristol, in the Rick Ware Racing car for Bristol, but then after that, the last few races here, he will be in the number 7. Exiting the number 7 is one Corey LaJoie. If you look at his last few races there, only 1 dud there, 14th, and then you got the bad race. Then you have a 9th, a 15th, and an 8th here, most recently at the Glen. So Corey LaJoie, for all of the noise, for all of the talk during the season, a lot of people turning on him as far as fans go and things like that, his last few races have been very good. He is on the upward trend. And he is a guy that has never really been with a powerhouse team. He's been with teams that are mid-equipment to bad equipment at best in his career. Now going to Rick Ware Racing. Rick Ware Racing, as we've mentioned, has had an uptick in performance. Will they continue to have that uptick in performance with Corey LaJoie going over there? That remains to be seen. To me, I think Corey LaJoie is leaving, a little bit better equipment to go to a little bit lesser equipment, but it's still, at the end of the day, midfield equipment as it is right now. But I do feel like Spire is rising up into that top 10, top 15 every single weekend type category equipment. So I do feel like they're on the rise, whereas Rick Ware Racing has just now gotten into a mid-level car where basically they went from, for a long time, a start and park team to just, sort of running at the back, and now they're starting to run mid-pack. So they are on an upward trend over there at Rick Ware Racing as well, but not quite where Spire is right now either. He is, however, if we're going to look at statistics, 28th in points, whereas Justin Haley is 32nd in points. So he does have that going for him. But I will say, once again, I do think the Spire equipment is better. Even though they're both midfield equipment cars, the Spire equipment is a little bit better equipment than the Rick Ware Racing equipment right now. Although, like I said, Rick Ware Racing does have its moments where it does have good races this season at least. Also, not for nothing, this joins a long list of, driver swaps that we've seen throughout the sport. The most memorable one of recently that I can think of was when Kevin Harvick and Ryan Newman basically got traded for each other between Stewart Haas and RCR back in the day. And then, of course, there was Jeremy Mayfield. If you want to go really far back, Jeremy Mayfield, this one would actually be apples to apples. Jeremy Mayfield and John Andretti, they did get switched toward the end of the season, and it would be almost an apples to apples comparison over there. So it will be, from here on out going forward, Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie getting compared to each other going forward. And also, like I said in the original video when I was talking about this, it does now make sense why Corey LaJoie threw a lot of shade on that first Spire win that Justin Haley got, because I think Corey LaJoie knew this the whole time, that Justin Haley was the man that had that seat. It's been, let's just say, not the best kept secret in the garage area. So I think that's where the shade for the first Spire win coming from Corey LaJoie came from when it was originally announced that he would be leaving that seat. All right, now on to Bubba Wallace in 2311. They have re-upped for a 2-year deal, according to Jordan Bianchi. What you're getting with Bubba Wallace, of course, last year finished 10th in points. This year did not make the playoffs, so obviously will not finish higher this season. But he does have more top 10s this season than he had last season. So actually the seasons are pretty close to being comparable as far as performance, except, you know, with the crazy playoff system, winning you're in, it knocks out some drivers that were naturally high in points. Chris Buescher, of course, being another one off the top of my head. So pretty much exact same season to season, so they know what they've got driver-wise, and they know what they've got sponsor-wise. Bubba Wallace has no problem bringing in the sponsors, and ironically, who he reminds me of right now, at least at this point in his career, is Aric Almirola. Of course, I say ironically because those two obviously had some type of issue or some type of beef earlier this season, but hear me out here. Both of them have good equipment. They make the playoffs some years. They don't make the playoffs some years. They're going to get a win for you here and there. And at points in their careers, they're going to look really, really good, like they've turned the corner. And then at points in their careers, they're going to look like they've regressed for some reason. I do see them, ironically enough, being the same type of driver, at least on the racetrack. And the other thing that, you know, sort of reminds me of both of them, they both have the sponsorship side of the deal covered. For the longest time, Aric Almirola and Smithfield were attached at the hip, so you knew you were getting the sponsorship there with Aric Almirola. And with Bubba Wallace, I feel like it's the same way. You've seen DoorDash with him for a long time. Several U.S. Air Force went back to Bubba Wallace. Like, you've seen tons of other sponsors stick with Bubba Wallace, or he doesn't have problems bringing them in. So I do see him as sort of the same type of driver, where they're going to be super consistent. As long as they don't get in wrecks, they're probably going to be near, you know, the cutoff line in the playoffs. You're going to make the playoffs more years probably than you're going to miss it, and you're going to win races here and there. But that's only one aspect of this signing. From the 2311 perspective, it does beg the question of what's going on with their charter situation. Obviously, them and Front Row being the two that have held out so far as the charter negotiations goes. And there's a few different ways of looking at this. One way of looking at it is, has 2311 behind the scenes getting close or close enough to striking a deal with NASCAR that they felt good about going ahead and signing Bubba Wallace? Because previously, obviously, Bubba Wallace had said the contract negotiations were being hampered by the, obviously, the charter negotiations as well. Another way of looking at it is that 2311 you know, didn't get what they wanted, and they've just accepted NASCAR's charter negotiation without gaining anything extra for the teams involved. And then, of course, the third way of looking at it, which was brought up by Eric Estep, I didn't even think about this myself, but I will give him credit because it does make sense. They still don't have a charter agreement going, but they're going to sign Bubba Wallace to a 2-year deal to show good faith that they do want to continue in the sport, so that they can possibly bring a legal case against NASCAR if that's the route that they want to take. Now, I'm far from a legal expert. I don't know like what they could do, but that does make sense. Like, that's another angle you could go. So there's at least 3 different angles, and probably 2 or 3 more that I'm not thinking about that could be the situation with the charter agreement in 2311. But it is pretty interesting that without, you know, every other team has agreed to the charter agreement. 2311 hasn't, but they have signed a driver for the next 2 years. It is interesting to speculate what's necessarily going on with 2311 and the charter agreements right now. All right, and one final thing before I jump off here tonight is the final race. Allegedly, for Dale Jr. in the Touring Series for NASCAR, says this is gonna be his last Xfinity Series race because he doesn't have anything on the docket for next year. But he said, I guess I don't think he really wants it to be his last race. I don't really know if this is really going to be his last race. That is a point of discussion. We talked about it on the live stream a little bit, and Basically, the way I feel about it is I don't think this will be his last race, but that could be shaded by the fact that I don't want this to be his last Xfinity Series race. Just some quick stats: 24 wins in the Xfinity Series off the top of my head. You can check these if you want to. And I feel like he's finished in the top 10 over 2/3 or maybe 1/3 of the time of the races that he's been in. So pretty impressive, and 2 times back-to-back champion in the Xfinity Series, 98 and 99. So very impressive Xfinity Series career, if in fact this is his last Xfinity Series race. All right. That's all I got for you on this one, and I'm not going to go into my spiel because we just went over 12K, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who is subscribed, and if you would like to subscribe, you know I would appreciate it. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to you guys because we did go over 12K, so thank you very much. Peace.